look at India and the global economic reset of 2021. We look at how the economy will rebound in 2021, whether there's a global economic reset taking place, and how India will fit into this reset, the role of China, the United States under a new administration. And to take us through this discussion, we have an eminent panel. I've done an interview with Dr. Charan Singh, CEO of eGrow, and Dr. Rajiv Singh, DG of ICC, that's Indian Chamber of Commerce, together. And I've done an interview separately with Dr. Sachin Chaturvedi, who's the Director General of RIS. Dr. Chaturvedi, to what extent will the economy rebound in 2021? Goldman Sachs, for one, predicts a 10% growth for India in the calendar year of 2021. What's your assessment?
See, Mark, the important is that there would be a bouncing back in the economy. That's for sure. Calculations may vary. Goldman, as you suggested, has talked about 10%. RBI has suggested 7.5%. But we are very sure that agriculture, which showed a sort of resilience, the MSME, the kind of support that we gave, is going to come back and is going to come back with much greater force to have some impact on economy. The scheduled commercial banks are already reporting year-on-year credit expansion, and we are seeing almost a 5.8% expansion right in by February in the scheduled commercial banks.
Dr. Charan Singh, I mean, how would you say 2021 is going to be?
Well, first of all, I must say that the first quarter results that came in were really very worrying. But the second quarter results that came in India uplifted all the spirits. And therefore, everybody felt that India is rebounding faster than they had anticipated. And the third quarter results, I'm very sure, are going to be better than the second quarter results, in the sense that the gloomy picture is over. And as I see looking around and looking at various indicators and the fast moving indicators, I think growth is taking place very rapidly and very fast. Therefore, my own prediction is that the calendar year 2021 is going to look far more positive. It's going to have a lower base, obviously. We are going to end the year at a much lower base than we had thought. So 10% to 12% would be a good estimate for the growth for the next year, 2021. Also depends, as you know, growth also depends on exports. And if the rest of the world is doing well, our exports would be doing better. I think our growth rate could be still a little higher.
Indeed. Dr. Rajiv Singh, do you concur with this view? And what do you think, what kind of sectors are likely to drive this growth post the vaccine rollout?
Absolutely. I think 10% GDP growth is doable. People are even talking about higher growth. But if you look at the numbers and the demand side trends, I think the electricity consumption has gone up, the tax collections have gone up. Most of the sectors are back at almost 80-85% of pre-COVID level. If you look at the logistics space, the shipping companies, the offtake from the ports, so everywhere you see positive trends, and 10% is absolutely doable. In terms of sectors, I would say a vaccine would impact all the sectors, because other than some of the FMCG companies, most are still below 85-90%. So most of the sectors need to catch up to 100% pre-COVID level, especially the sectors which are badly hit: hospitality, travel, hotels, tourism, services. Real estate has shown some improvement, but going ahead, these sectors will really drive the growth, and infrastructure, which will actually anchor the growth.
Dr. Chaturvedi,
you find a sort of rebound in food processing sector, in the IT infrastructure, and also in the infrastructure projects. So you see a sort of resilience coming up in the economy. Those who were talking about green shoots now are much more confident of this bouncing back. So I see that
Okay.
greater efforts made in terms of liquidity and post-COVID revival, we see are coming back.
Dr. Charan Singh, but we've had the Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign. There was a massive stimulus announced. It's also recharged to some extent manufacturing. So what extent do you think manufacturing is going to play a role in our growth story 2021?
So I must say that the Atmanirbhar Bharat schemes that were announced were really a big help. Now, I don't only look at these schemes that are announced by the government in terms of the monetary targets that they set or the way they support, but the most important thing that I look at is the sentiments and the emotions that it carries. The very fact that the government is standing behind you, is listening to you, is coming out in phases to come and support you is something which is very positive. So the recovery that we saw in the second quarter, I would ascribe it to this sort of a support, the sentimental support which the government provided. Now, obviously, we are a country which is emerging. Also, our tax to GDP ratio is low, especially in COVID when there's a lockdown. You can imagine hardly any tax collection. So in that circumstances, the government could not be giving out doles or giving out flushed with money. That's a very difficult task. They have to balance it at the end of the day. And nobody knew how long this will last. It could have a second phase. It could have a variant. The 1918 lasted 18 months. So the government had to keep its pocket dry. Keeping all this in mind, one can say that the money part was of course not that high, but the sentiments part and the support that they provided was very good. And that is what was seen in the results which came in the second quarter. The third quarter and the fourth quarter. These are the quarters when lots of festivals take place, marriages take place, the weather in India is really good. And one after the other, most festivals are in this period. So therefore, I'm looking at it in a much bigger
Okay.
and aggressive way, the growth to benefit and manufacturing sector to do well. And lastly, the point that I would like to make, in the transport sector, the number of two-wheelers which are selling and public transport which is selling, e-commerce is doing very well. So these are bound to increase in the next 2 months. So growth wave and uptick in the growth is obviously what I expect.
Dr. Chaturvedi, to what extent, has Atmanirbhar Bharat, that package, played in recharging manufacturing?
If you look at the details, you would realize the huge support that we have given through, whether it is about the Atmanirbhar Bharat 3.0, which Finance Minister announced with 2,65,000 crores, which has given a major, I would say, impetus to the trends that we see in terms of parts and components, and also production of manufacturing. So the trade data is making it clear that we are now importing the intermediate products, and we are also exporting increasingly. So as a result, what we saw in Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan 2.0 with 73,000 crores, we find that with 2,65,000 crores in Atmanirbhar Bharat 3.0, the effort in the manufacturing sector is coming up in a major way. And you identify the sectors within manufacturing that are showing this resilience, particularly in terms of the sectors where, as I said, information technology agreements that are there, the ideas that are there related to the software sectors, and also their connect with the manufacturing. So you find a growing convergence of services and industry manufacturing in a new sort of resilience in the economy. Third, and I think much more important, is what we created, the 7,500 crore industry of PPE. Okay. This is going to provide a major support to us, whether it is about the ventilators, about APIs, generics, and the digital health complex that we are talking of. So as a result, Mark, more and more efforts are on in terms of bringing the greater resilience in the sector that we are talking of.
Dr. Rajiv Singh, is there a global economic reset that's taking place post-COVID? Because now the rest of the world will also get into the vaccine rollout. And what are we seeing? Are we seeing that the dominant economies will once again take control, or are we going to see a reset?
I think there has been a temporary reset, which has been put in place because of COVID. And if you look at the US economy, the European markets, definitely there has been a dampener. But if you look at, let's say, next 1 or 2 years, I don't see a major change in the world order.
Okay.
But the best part is India has started its journey. And if you talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat or Vocal for Local, we have been part of very elaborate discussions with the Ministry of Commerce for last 9 months. And there is a very elaborate exercise going on to identify the sectors which can drive the growth, sectors where we need to reduce the import dependence, things which can be manufactured in India, things which we need not import, and wherever we are importing, how do you have, let's say, a roadmap of 3 to 5 years? So there may not be an immediate reset, but I would say next 3 to 5 years, India will definitely emerge as the 5th largest or the 4th largest economy in the world. And in terms of the trade imbalance which India has today, the situation is going to change. If you look at China, China is already back pre-COVID levels.
Yes.
And same is true with most of the South Asian and Asian economies other than US and EU. But I think a process has started by which India will gain maximum because government has put in a right policy framework, opening up of FDIs, offering incentives, labor reforms, production linked benefits. So all these are basically the foundation for India to become part of that top 4 economies in the world.
Okay. Dr. Charan Singh.
Yes, to my mind, the geopolitics has really changed rapidly. And sentiments that have emerged in the COVID and post-COVID period against China are so apparent. And they are going to really change. The world will never be the same again. China might have come back to the pre-COVID levels. That is okay. But most of the companies would have started thinking that monopoly of one country in the localization of the industry is probably not the right thing. The recovery has taken a long time. The cost has been very, very large. And mortality rate in many countries has been very large. So already across the world, countries have started thinking that probably they need to move their production facilities out of China into other countries. Many other countries have come out as candidate. Vietnam is one, Bangladesh, Estonia, many other countries. And I think India has also turned out to be a good destination. Though it has not yet converted into many multinationals coming here, but I have been saying that this is the time when the Indian government and the Indian embassies across the world need to start saying that India is a great destination. It is a great coastline, so port cities. It has industrial towns. It has mining towns. It has absolutely virgin areas in Northeast, and it has hilly areas. Whatever the industry wants, multinationals, we have something to offer. And therefore, I think we need to match what China used to do: free land, easy terms of loans, free electricity, and arranging labor for them. I think we need to jump into it. So then the question is, yes, there is going to be a reset. And this reset is going to happen fast. As the recovery happens, the vaccine is out, and decisions have to be taken for investment with the Indian government's welcoming attitude and liberalizing. And as my co-panelist was saying, making things easier. I'm sure India is going to become a better destination, attract more foreign direct investment and many more multinationals. To that extent, yes, there'll be a correction in trade imbalances.
Do you believe, Dr. Chaturvedi, that there is a global economic reset taking place? And, and if there is one, or even this current time that we've had when, much of the world has been in lockdown, is it been a time when we can correct historical trade imbalances? For instance, with China and such trade imbalances and, get ourselves on a better footing going ahead?
Absolutely right. See, Mark, what has happened during this lockdown is the change in our paradigm on international engagement. The idea of self-reliant India, the idea of Atmanirbhar Bharat is something which is bringing in the ability to comprehend what we could not think of, say, 10 months ago. And that I see as a positive gain from the huge crisis the nations have gone through, and of course, humanity has gone through. Particularly in context of India and particularly in context of the global trade, I would say that this reset is going to help us in a major way. Whether we are really out of those dominant countries, time would tell us. But definitely efforts have been made. As I said, during the COVID crisis, the whole 7,500 crore PPE industry came up from scratch. And that's the testimony in terms of the human capacities that we have. The fact that no other developing country has come up with as many vaccine candidates for COVID as India has come up with. So that shows the intellectual bandwidth that we have. And if you look at the idea of Asia-Africa growth corridor that Prime Minister had talked about in 2016, India and Japan partnering for larger humanity in Asia and Africa, that gives you the bandwidth in terms of how the process would go on. So historical trends are going to be pushed aside when we are going to break the ceiling. The issue here is there was a study we did some time back at RIS, which showed that India is importing around 4,044 products from China. And if you decipher them in terms of sensitivity, you find that 327 products, only 327 products contribute almost $66.6 billion trade deficit out of the total deficit of around $90.4 billion. So if you look at that, you identify that these 327 products, can't we produce it domestically?
Okay.
Can't we import from some other sources? And RIS study has shown for each of the 327 products, what other 20 sources are possible for imports. So Mark, if this kind of detailing that has been done through this study, I think practically it is not completely impossible to throw aside dominant economies which have in a way predominant presence in our import basket. We can do it domestically and we should do it. The Atmanirbhar Bharat is the way forward in terms of how we can reduce India's import dependence.
So there's likely to be a correction in historical trade imbalances. Would you say that is possible, Dr. Rajiv Singh, with China being at pre-COVID levels, because the strength of their economy is back to where it was, and we are hoping to correct, a huge trade imbalance with China. Is that even possible?
Yes, as I mentioned, the geopolitical reset has happened, but the economic reset will take some time. And that will happen on your fundamental strengths. Now, China, which has built its capacities and the economy for a long time, and it has reached a level and a scale which is now almost challenging the US dominance in the global economic markets. So India has already put a framework in place. India is moving in the right direction. Just to say that this imbalance will correct if you look at the oil imports.
Okay.
I think on an average, 20%
reduction
is happening, and like that much impact will be visible on in the import bill. Similarly, if you look at the electronics manufacturing, so there again, like India has been importing almost 1 lakh crore worth of electronic components. So that is the second highest import which India has. And 1/3.
But our exports have to increase. Our exports have to increase. Exports, yes. So in sectors like pharmaceuticals, for one.
Absolutely. And no, even in electronics, if you see industry is hoping, and there has been a sharp rise in exports, and India's industry is hoping that by 2025, India will be exporting almost a lakh crore equivalent of electronic components from India. Now,
Okay.
that will be a big change. And all these production-linked incentive schemes, all the mobile companies shifting base to India, all the global companies looking at alternate value chains, sources, markets. So this is happening and it will happen. But it cannot happen like in 1 year. Because of COVID, many economies, many buyers, many countries wanted to look at alternate sourcing, but it will take at least 3 to 5 years time frame till India is able to have its own place in the global market, reduce the import dependence, and also address the trade imbalance.
Fair enough. A final question to you, Dr. Charan Singh. There's a new administration that will take office in the United States. So how is this going to affect the trade war with China, the US and China, and how will it play out globally?
That's a very difficult question. And the reason is very obvious. I somehow feel Americans have been treating the Chinese with kid gloves for a very long time. If there had been any other country in the place of China, it would have been very difficult to get away with what China has gotten away since 2005. The exchange rate, now I do not know to say it or not, but quote unquote, the manipulations that happened during that time. So therefore, my own feeling is that the American administration, whatever be the administration, whatever be the in power, the Democrats or the Republicans, they have to rethink their China policy. Yes, the Republican president had been a little harsh to that extent, again, quote unquote word harsh with the Chinese, or probably realistic with the Chinese. And before that, the Obama administration was a little kind. But I think a time has come that they will have to rethink how to handle this. I think the sentiments even within the country, which will be driving the Congress and the influence of the Congress on the presidential White Office, will have an impact. I wish that the Americans treat Chinese like they would have treated any other country. I do understand that the Americans also feel that China has been supplying them goods which are very, very at a low cost, very cheap. So therefore, to a large segment within America, people have been getting affordable items. But
Okay.
at what cost and at what international relations they will have to weigh in. So I think that relationship is in for a reset, and correctly so.
Do you want to comment on this point to Dr. Rajiv Singh? Anything to add?
Yes, definitely. I think we'll have to go a little backwards. If you go to 2012, the Obama administration repeatedly failed to protect its allies in Asia Pacific region against China's aggression. And we all remember the conflict which Manila and Beijing had for a long time. Now, obviously, Trump had a different stance, and it took a very tough stance on China. Now, going ahead, I think what I hope and expect, I think US definitely needs to get and continue to remain tough with China, including issues like anti-competitive trade practices, which are basically impacting the American companies and their IP. I hope that the president, Mr. Biden, will likely retain, and maybe he will add to the sanctions.
Okay.
But it is also true that US will have to engage with China on many global issues like public health, environment. Now, China is definitely an important country, stakeholder on many of these issues where you need to engage with them. So, but I think as we just heard, I think US has to treat China the way it will or it has been treating others.
Okay. And with that, we conclude this first episode, India and the Global Economic Reset. I'd like to thank our guests and thank you for watching. Namaskar.